Dear students, continuing with the series of giving you video lectures on important questions, today I bring before you the effect of the Russian Revolution. Now, in my previous videos, I've talked about the Russian Revolution, the analysis of the Russian Revolution in February. My other video lecture was on the Russian Revolution, which happened in October 1917. I also talked about the Lenin's new economic policy. So today's video lecture is on the impact or the effect of the Russian Revolution. So let's just move on. Now, exactly whenever you are asked this question, normally they don't specify, okay, talk about the political, social, economic impact. Normally, the question always asks, which is asked in the examination, is discuss in detail the impact of the Russian Revolution, or if they just want to give you a little difficult, they might ask you to critically analyze. Although in the undergraduate classes, critical analysis of the Russian Revolution is not done. That sometimes is a part of the honors if you pick up the history honors from Guru Nanak Dev University. Now, so coming up to the topic. Now, Russian Revolution marked one of the most radical turning points in the history of Russia. This event was an event of great significance. It uprooted not only the autocratic rule which prevailed in Russia for centuries, but it also established equality. It affected the economy, social structure, culture, and the international relations. The revolution opened the doors for Russia to enter the industrial age. It did establish the communist government and give birth to the communist ideology. So, if very quickly it was an event of great significance, it not only uprooted the autocratic rule, established equality, affected their economic, social, cultural, and international relations, opened the door for Russia to enter the industrial age, established communist government, and gave birth to the communist ideology. Now, one of the most important historians on the world history is C.D. Hazen. He writes, the new government announced its policy at once and immediate peace, which meant to take Russia out of the World War One, the confiscation of all the landed property, recognition of the supreme authority of the Soviets, working men and soldier councils, and election of the Constituent Convention, right? So this could be your introduction. Now let's move on to the impact. Now, for an easy access to this topic, I have divided the impact of the Russian Revolution into three broader areas. I've talked under the political impact, then the social impact, then the economic impact. Of course, you can also talk about the international relations or what kind of impact it had on Russia's relation with the other countries, but I've kind of talked in the political impact. Right. Now, what are we going to study in the political impact? One, so what was the political impact of the Russian Revolution of both the February and the October? Number one, the end of the autocratic rule, establishment of the communist government, withdrawal of Russia from World War One, division of world into two ideologies, new awakening among the slave countries, rise in self-confidence among the peasants and workers, suppression of the civil liberties. Russia emerged as a world power, spread of communism through the world. Right? So, number one, end of the autocratic rule. Now, we know that the Russians were under the rule of the Romanov dynasty. So, the most important impact of the Russian Revolution was that it brought an end to the autocratic rule of the Romanov dynasty. On March 2nd, 1917, Nicholas II, the Tsar of Russia, left the throne. Hence, this revolution uprooted the autocratic rule in Russia. This is one impact, political. Then is the establishment of the communist government. Where is my pointer? Right. Now, another result of the Russian Revolution was the establishment of the communist government. So, in short, if I say, they tried to give a practical shape to the ideology of Karl Marx, which aimed at establishing the sovereignty of the workers or the proletariat. Now, after the revolution, the new society was based exactly on the ideology, the ideals of Karl Marx, who believed in the establishment of the right. So the new society, which was based in Russia, was based on the ideology of Marx, who believed in the establishment of the sovereignty of the workers. Communist government was set up, the capitalists were ruthlessly suppressed, and it created a new awakening among the workers, peasants, and the downtrodden. Most important, it was the Russian Revolution which actually withdrew Russia from the World War One. Because as I know, when I talked about the February Revolution, I told you that this is what the women were demanding: peace and bread. Now, peace was they wanted to withdraw. They wanted Russia to withdraw from World War One, and this was the scenario when Lenin launched his October Revolution. That is what he believed in, that Russia should be taken out of the World War, even if it meant Russia has to go through many losses. Now, the Russia army was being defeated repeatedly. The soldiers, the people, they wanted to get out of the war. Hence, the new government signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with Germany in 1918 and withdrew Russia from the World War One. Right. Then is the new awakening among the slave countries. Now, Russian Revolution created a new awakening among the countries held in subjugation, and of course, it also had an important impact on the India's freedom struggle. The revolution showed them the path to get independence and also inspired them to adopt revolutionary methods to gain freedom. So, whenever we study Bhagat Singh, of course, he was very much influenced by the Russian Revolution of 1917. So Vladimir Lenin proclaimed that all the subject nations in Asia and Africa whose territory was forcibly grabbed in the 20th century or earlier should immediately be liberated by the European imperialists. The new communist government encouraged freedom movements among the imperialist countries or the powers. Next is rise in the self-confidence among the peasants and the workers. So it was the result of the Russian Revolution that the peasants and workers felt self-confident. Why? Because this revolution abolished all the powers of the privileged classes and it established equality. Now, the peasant ownership of the land was recognized and the workers were made equal partners in industry, and this went a long way in instilling confidence in them. Now, whenever we talk about the new economic policy, we see that yes, the the land was redistributed to them, but we see that a certain degree of capitalism was included in the new economic policy. So, of course, after the revolution, the workers were made equal partners in the industry, but because the production was going very low, and that is when Lenin recognized that for some time this new economic policy, which was based on capitalism, was introduced, and that carried on from 1921 to 22, right? Then is suppression of the civil liberties. As I also referred to you during the Bolshevik Revolution, that even when the Bolshevik Revolution was over, there were two groups in Russia, one which supported the Bolsheviks and the other which were anti-Bolsheviks. And anti-Bolsheviks were also supported by the Western powers. So yes, so as to keep the Bolsheviks in power, of course, the civil liberties were suppressed. The government abolished all civil liberties like freedom of speech, expression, and freedom to organize. The opposition of this party, the Bolshevik party, was ruthlessly suppressed, and government suppressed this so as to establish a strong Russia. And that is why, you'll kind of see that after Bolshevik Revolution, there was a civil war, there was war communism, and then just to overhaul the economic structure, Lenin introduced the new economic policy. Then Russia emerged as a world power. See, before revolution, what was the condition of Russia? Russia was defeated by Japan in the Russo-Japanese War. In World War One, Germans also made Russians to suffer. But after the revolution, Russia rose to the world power. She made tremendous progress in economy, industry, military power, and thus emerged as the world power. Then is a spread of communism, because whenever we do the Cold War, whenever we talk about the Cold War, the very first event which comes to our mind is that maybe the spread of communism started from the Russian Revolution in 1917. Now, Russia was a big supporter of communism. It also adopted communist ideology. Thus, after the revolution, Russia promoted the communist ideology, and it spread throughout the world. Efforts were made to propagate these ideas in the countries of Europe and Asia. For this purpose, Third International or Comintern was set up at Moscow in March 1919. I think this is all I have in the political. So a quick revision of what we have done till now. Right. So political impact, one, the end of the autocratic rule. Now it is Nicholas II, the Tsar of Russia, left the throne. Then is establishment of the communist government, which believed in the ideals of Karl Marx. Number three, Russia withdrew from the World War One by signing the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with Germany on 3rd March 1918. Then new awakening among the slave countries, because Lenin proclaimed that to all the subject nations in Asia or Africa whose territory was forcibly grabbed in the 20th century must liberate themselves from the European imperialist. Then is a rise in the self-confidence among the peasants and the workers. All the privileges of the privileged class were taken away. Equality was established. Then workers were made equal partner in the industry. Then is the suppression of the supremacy of the Bolshevik government, the suppression of the civil liberty, so as to kind of make the Bolshevik government supreme. That was also a part of the Russian Revolution. Russia emerged as a world power. I told you before this revolution, Russia was defeated by Japan in the Russo-Japanese War of 1904. Russia in the World War had to suffer from Germany, but after the revolution, she made tremendous progress in economy, industry, military power, and emerged as the world power. Then as the spread of communism throughout the world, it is from Russia that this communist ideology also started spreading throughout the world, right? Okay, so let's now talk about the social impact: abolition of the class differences, expansion of education, improvement in women's condition, and promotion of secularism. See, very first impact of the Russian Revolution was that it took away the privileges that was enjoyed by the privileged class. Now, before the Russian Revolution, society was divided into haves and the have-nots. Haves were the members of the royal family, high officials. They were given all the privileges, whereas the have-nots included the workers, peasants, and the serf. They had no such privileges which were given to the haves. So after the revolution, the new government abolished all the rights and privileges given to these haves, and they established equality in the Russian society. Then is expansion of education. Now, after Russian Revolution, education was really expanded. Number one, they separated education from church. The government started establishing educational council, libraries, universities, and school buildings. The literate people also helped in eradicating literacy. So there was an overall expansion of the education. Now, this is also an important impact of the Russian Revolution, because it also saw the improvement in the women's condition. Now, Bolshevik revolution granted women equal rights to men. They had the right to vote, right to education, right to employment. Women became economically self-dependent, politically awakened, and socially progressive. They became the doctors, ambassadors, high military officials. So this revolution helped to improve the condition of the woman in Russia. Then is the very important point, the promotion of secularism. That means after Russian Revolution, Lenin opposed, the new government under Lenin opposed the Russian Orthodox Church. They supported and promoted secularism. Everyone was free to follow his or her own religion. The state did not have any official religion. So let's just see what did we do in the social impact, right? So we did that. Number one, abolition of the class differences. All the privileges were taken back, and now equality was established in the Russian social structure. There is expansion of education. They separated education from church, established educational council, libraries, universities, and the school buildings. There is improvement in the condition of women. They became economically self-independent. Then is your politically awakened and socially progressive. They were doctors, ambassadors, and high military officials. Then is the promotion of secularism. Lenin opposed the power of the Russian Orthodox Church and supported and promoted secularism. So everyone was free to follow his or her own religion. Right now, lastly, we come to the economic impact. There was a new economic policy, end of capitalism, establishment of economic equality, industrial development, and collectivization of farming. Now, when we look at these points, it seems as if they are kind of contradictory. When I say end of capitalism, in the new economic policy, there was a hint of capitalism, and that was to be provided so as to overhaul the economy. So this will kind of try to project something contradictory, but that is how it impacted the economic structure of the Russia. Now, in 1921, see, I told you after the October Revolution, there was a civil war. Now, during the civil war, because the Bolsheviks under Lenin wanted to win, so they used this for them, we use this term as the war communism. That is the policies that they did during that time, and they wanted to control the entire resources so as to have an edge over the whites or the non-Bolshevik parties, right? So after the war communism, the economic, this economic the economic structure, or the economic, there was an economic disorder, absolute disorder in Russia. So to actually rectify that, to overhaul the economic system, he had to adopt the new economic policy. For further details, you can also refer to my video lecture on the new economic policy of Lenin. Now, Lenin was afraid of the deteriorated economic conditions of Russia, so he adopted this policy to save Russia from economic ruin, but this policy continued only till 1928, and later when Stalin comes into power, he introduced the 5-year plans. Now is the end of capitalism. Now, Bolshevik revolution put an end to the capitalism. The revolution was based on the communist ideology, so they abolished capitalism. However, very, very important, for some time to revive the economy, Lenin adopted capitalism in his new economic policy, which lasted till 1928. Do watch my lecture on this, where you will get the entire, discussion on the new economic policy, right? Then is establishment of economic equality. It abolished the economic inequality. Sorry, there's a little mistake here. It abolished economic inequality. The government confiscated the whole land from the landlords. The land was redistributed. The government also gave share to the workers in industry. So any kind of inequality, again, I think there's a little mistake here. It abolished the economic inequality. right? Then is the industrial development. After a Russian Revolution, industries made a great progress. Government adopted such policies which led to great industrial development. They did nationalize certain factories. Why? Because those factories were the lifelines for the industrial development. So they needed more of money. So government was ready to invest in these factories. They also distributed land among the peasants. However, had adverse effect which led to the adoption of the new economic policy. So all those industries which were given to the workers were taken aback, right? Then these trust or syndicates were made. And when Stalin came to power, he started the 5 year plans for the industrial developments. The most important is the collectivization of farming. That means they tried to kind of like a cooperative farming kind of a thing. So for rapid development of agriculture and to increase its production, the government adopted the policy of collectivization of land. They put together all the small farms. As a result, new techniques could be easily applied and it resulted in the development of agriculture. So this is all which I have for you in this video. I'm sure this will be helpful to you, and the topic that we have covered is the impact of the Russian Revolution, right? So you can also add little more points, and I'll be more than happy to see if you give me in the comment section anything that you want to add in this answer. So see you again with some new video. By then, take good care of yourself and study hard. Shine like a star. Thank you so much.